Good morning to you, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Los Angeles, California, United States of America. February 28th, 2021. Today, I would like to speak again on behalf of and for the courageous women and men in Myanmar, in Burma, standing in solidarity to timeless principles of decency and goodness and democracy and that pristine quality called freedom. The freedom to think without fear, the freedom to use our mind and our heart in the way that we choose to elevate the status of our friends and family, ourselves, our dignity. And you are challenging a military unit formerly known as the Thamada, that at this point has become Burma's Taliban. It is unequivocally a terrorist organization run by General Min Aung Hlaing, who's become an Osama bin Laden in the world today, unequivocally. As I learned this morning from the media and a friend who sent me a news piece, Yangon has descended into a war zone. Burma is under siege. What can we do here on the outside? What can they do inside? And may I take my time today, may I encourage you, be a force multiplier, send this video out to the people of the world and your social tribes, diplomats, United Nations ambassadors, President Obama, people in Myanmar. Let the world know that we're paying attention and that we're acting. Again, spontaneously, I'm outraged. I want to scream. I want to fight. I want to seek revenge. I want justice. I want to shake the conscience and the neck of my president. I want to address the United Nations and just send them the most psychedelic-oriented, radical wake-up call to set their minds on fire with shame and guilt in the unthinkable inaction. That's the most striking thing right now, is the pathetic, despicable, there's no real word to talk about the non-response of the free world. End of story. People are dying at close range. The Taliban of Burma, the terrorist organization formerly known as the Thamada, the military in uniform, supplied by weapons and technology by China and Russia, Turkey, Israel, and the Ukraine, primarily China and Russia. They're shooting boys and girls, men and women, teachers, doctors, nurses, human life with live bullets at close range, persecuting, beating, chasing, jailing, and thrown into the gulags of Burma. Point one. It's a dark day in Burma. And I'm thinking, Alan, what's new on planet Earth? I was thinking back at some of my research in years past on the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland, 450,000 Jews and Christians and Catholics confined like animals in a 1.5 square mile prison camp systematically starved to death and allowed to die in disease and in pollution and in terror, systematically being taken out of these urban cages and taken to various extermination camps in Germany to be gassed and killed, until there was eventually, some years later, an uprising where eventually the entire ghetto, the encampment, nearly 50,000 people in a very short period of time were killed, and others were deported and exterminated. Welcome to planet Earth, Alan. And I'm thinking, wow, what does it take? What does it take for good people, conscious people, caring people, right now around the world who are enjoying their own liberty? What do we do? What does it take to be consciously triggered to respond? And even so, Alan, what do we do? How can we help? These are questions that come to my mind, and I'm sure they cross your mind and anyone who's tuning in for the first time. I'd love to help. What can I do besides, changing my Facebook page to I'm in solidarity with the civil disobedience movement of Myanmar? Great, start there. Put it on your Instagram page, on your Twitter page. Forward articles and videos. There's just tons of them coming out. Just join in the most elemental human way to show your own inner being that dignity means something to me. My freedom cannot be really free without their freedom. Ubuntu, the South African term that I was introduced to by the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I cannot be who I am without you. The inseparable, no person is an island statement in this existence, paticca samuppada. We are all interwoven in a fabric of immediacy and intimacy. I can't breathe without oxygen. You can't live without food. We are indispensably placed in a fabric of mutuality. Burma is family, F-A-M-I-L-E. But I don't feel their pain. I don't have the capacity, Alan, to extend, to empathize. Isn't that the issue here? It's more of a spiritual issue, a psychological issue. We've done workshops all over the world on how to embody mindfulness, how to embody compassion in action. Metta, off the fucking cushion, man. What does it mean to feel? It's a revolution of mutuality. And okay, you're poetic, you're cool, you've got language for these things, but still, get prego, Alan. What do we do? Okay. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging with me. We're in this together as best as we can, where we sit today to extend our helping heart for the good boys and girls in Burma right now, withstanding the ferocity of these idiotic terrorists. I mean, what could melt their neuroses other than high doses of psilocybin, psychedelics, and put into the food, into the water, and watch their own idiocy, their bravado, just melt down in a puddle of shame? Nonviolence in action under the most duress. Do we need another Holocaust? We need a World War II, 3, 4, 5? How many more do we need of this? Alan, that's why you turned to the Dhamma. There's the ultimate reality and there's conventional reality. And why not seek the ultimate nirvana, the extinction of all kilesa, all fear, greed, and delusion? You can't change the world. It's called samsara, Alan. You've got to get it. No amount of behaviors will shift the paradigm that we're born into. Lokiya Dhamma, you learned it in the monasteries in Burma. Good and bad, right and wrong, praise and blame, love and hate, all these dualities. never cease through politics and concepts. They only cease, Alan, as you know, through radical self-responsibility in the articulation of mindful intelligence across the landscape of your own nama rupa, your own mind, your own physicality. And even so, look at all the meditators that you've seen around the world, even under the most articulate conditions, how hard it is for someone to cease blaming you for the reason, the way they feel. Okay? It's not an easy thing to fix. I know I'm just kind of speaking out loud here across the landscape of spontaneity. What to do? I remember meeting Daw Aung San Suu Kyi after 17 years of being blacklisted from Burma, proudly. I was invited to San Francisco to the Václav Havel Award ceremony, where she was being awarded the Václav Havel Award of Creative Dissent. And my daughter met her, and my daughter's mom, and we were invited to the dinner after the event, and we spoke for the first time in 17 years. After having done our book together, The Voice of Hope. And very quickly, I said, in our conversation, that I've just recently learned that I have been unbanned. And she smiled and said, Alan, all the more reason to immediately come back to Burma and to carry on, please, with helping our people achieve freedom and democracy. That's the Daw Aung San Suu Kyi that I knew. A tireless dedication to caring. The courage to care, she would emphasize over and over again. That's the paradigm of our revolution. The courage to care, one person at a time. And so I went back to Burma. 2012 to 2021. 15 different times for a month to 3 to 4 months, and traveled the country and met with hundreds of different people, and I recorded them, sometimes on video and audio, sometimes only audio, talking to the people about the nature of their country. How have you endured? What does freedom mean to you? What does democracy mean to you? What does human rights feel like when they're being taken from you? But more to the point, I spoke with, I don't know, maybe at least 100 former political prisoners. I cannot recommend enough to study the lives and the mind of these heroic girls and boys that are willing to go to prison. And right now they're taking them to prison in Burma. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's back in jail, we think. She's missing. What does it mean to care so deeply about freedom and democracy and human rights in a ahimsa-based psychology, a non-violent approach? What are you willing to do to further the luminosity of freedom that includes even your tormentor, your torturer, and your oppressor? Welcome to Burma, Revolution of the Spirit. It's mind-boggling epic in their archetype of challenging these deep primordial forces of greed and anger and delusion and dictatorship with the power of the human heart and mind and the voice. That's Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. That's U Win Tin. That's U Win Tain. That's Matida. That's Momo Myat. There's hundreds of these girls and boys all throughout the country. They're all Martin Luther Kings. They're all Gandhis. They're all Daw Aung San Suu Kyis. They're all liberation in action. They are epic. And we're seeing it again today. And so I interviewed these people. And my colleague and co-author and my dear friend, Fergus Harlow, and I put together these 4 books, Burma's Voices of Freedom. And it just came out a couple of months ago. The lives of people from 5 to 20 years crammed into cells and others in solitary confinement. I asked them the most difficult, intimate questions. How do you keep freedom alive when you don't see anyone for year after year, with no bed, with no pan to pee in and poo in, with scraps of food that are like dog food, with no pillow, no mosquito net, no blankets? That's the mind of the dictatorship in Burma. How do you keep freedom alive there? And remember U Win Tin telling me that I would take pieces of brick and just grind them down into a type of chalk and put a little bit of water in them, and then make a word on the wall. Freedom. Think of the mindful intelligence and the moral courage of that level of Dhamma and grace and freedom under pressure. That's Burma. These are the elders. U Win Tin has passed on. And this was 2012 to 2021, and they had been released. And it was a whole generation from 1988, you'll remember. In 89, many of them were arrested. Aung San Suu Kyi was imprisoned. They were released in 95, 96, 97, and then rearrested. Came back into the country in 2012. They were released. These are their words. And now it's the next iteration of the revolution in Burma, 2021. Do we want to have another generation of political prisoners for a year or 5 or 20 in solitary? They're picking off the leaders. They're taking the teachers. They're taking the doctors. They're taking the nurses. They're taking the influencers. They're taking the rock stars, the singers, the hip-hop artists. They're taking the conscience and the artistry and the intelligence of the country and saying, I dare you want to be free for us or for the future of our people. Diabolical, yes, I agree. It's a bad design that we're born into, that existence has to deal with these dark forces. Anyone involved in meditation as a yogi or in Dhamma or in Dharma understands that these primordial forces we're born with. It's in and through our DNA. No one is, I don't think, born to hate. To quote so many people who have talked about that, I think you have to learn to hate. These men in uniform and their wives and the women in uniform and their husbands, they learn to hate. Radically traumatized, okay? Psychologically wounded, crippled deep down inside, along with some kind of deviant gene. And here they are born into this mystical culture and they can't even hear their teachers, their nuns, their monks. They can't hear the ancient sound of the Buddha. Buddhang saranang gacchami. All beings have the capacity to awaken if you take your blame and your hatred off of the world. The number one commandment of Dhamma as a yogi: cease your preoccupation with the arrogance of making others wrong. Why are you a terrorist organization? You're looking at boys and girls, medics, students, dentists, artists, singers, lovers. They're kneeling down in metta, in meditation, chanting, we love you, come to our side, and you have orders to shoot, and you kill these people thinking that you're doing the right thing. That's called perversity, the deepest perversities of moha or delusion. Okay, do you have to be a psychiatrist to be a political leader today? Pretty much. Who wants to be a commentator on the outside, right? Still, Alan, what do we do? What's practical? Do we sign petitions? Do we go burn ourselves on the front steps of the United Nations? Do we divest, stop paying taxes? So many things that could be done. In Burma, there's no longer participating in buying or supporting anything military-based. Okay, I'll offer a practical solution. Start with. I'm thinking immediately, just spontaneously, there's a key monk in Myanmar, Siddhagu Sayadaw. He's Burma's Dalai Lama, something close to it. Many people speak critically of him. He seems somewhat on the fence, at times being good and decent. No offense to you, sir. We've spoken. You're in my books, Burma's Voices of Freedom. But you seem to have some kind of need to hold hands with Senior General Ming Online. Therefore, you are in bed with Osama bin Laden. Sorry to say it so bluntly. You are colluding with a terrorist organization, and you're basically saying to the people of your beloved Burma, Buddhist Burma, I think it's kind of groovy that you're killing these people because you're compromising the sanctity of our country. Fuck you, Sitagu. Come out of your moral cave of idiocy. Oh, layperson, former Buddhist monk, speaks to me that way. Send him out of the country permanently. Okay, fine. What are we supposed to do? Pay homage to you? Be polite to you? You're in bed with Hitler, dude. Snap out of it. If you broke ranks right now and go, hey, write Alan off, write Burma on, and go, where is my sila? Where is my dignity? Where is my love for universal human rights? Burma, the next Tibet. First they came and got the trade unionists, and because I was a Buddhist Sitagu, I didn't speak up. The next thing you know, they came and got the Tila Shins, and because I was a male in Burma, I just said, gosh, I'm just going to send metta to the Tila Shins. But then they came and got the monks, and goodness, I was a senior monk and they didn't get me. But eventually, as it's been said, they came and got the Sitagu Sayadaw, and there was no one left to speak up for me. Sir, you're in the lineage of the terrorist organization, and believe you me, no one is safe in that country, probably even Ming Online's wife. Speak up. What does it look like to speak up? You've got national TV in that country. You have support of nearly 500,000 other monks. You've got worldwide global recognition. What would you say? I could think of 100 different things, but one comes to mind. Senior General Ming Online and other leaders in the Thamada, cease immediately your use of violence and persecution and the threat of violence. Cease. STOP your Angulimala behavior. Stop. The way in which spiritual people, Buddhist people, the Sangha, we handle controversy through the Patimokkha. The Vinaya is sacred. We discuss our differences. We discuss transgressions. We are committed to the rule of nonviolent law. You're just simply stating basic sanity contained within the 11,000 pages of the Tipitaka, sir. Just simply stand in your moral prestige and call stop all violence now. And you can be sure that Senior General Ming Online, he may not like to hear that from you. He thinks he's got you in his vault, his bed, his stock options. I don't know exactly why you're in collusion with this dude. It's obvious that he's completely out of his mind at the moment. But you, sir, have the power. You are Burma's Dalai Lama. You are the Pope of Burma, by some standards at least. And so I implore you, sir, I compel you, sir, I invite you, sir, all Buddhists worldwide are inviting you, sir, to stand in your moral power. One man can stop the horror. Risk it all for your people, for the sasana, for the Dhamma, for the Buddha, for the robes that you wear, for the donations that you get to live in those incredibly palatial yektas and monasteries throughout Myanmar, for the prestige that you have had around the world. You've met the Pope, you've met the Dalai Lama. You are respected, sir. And right now, I'm not calling you out. I'm inviting you as a lover of Dhamma, as a lay practitioner of the sasana. You, sir, can stop the war on the people. Stand up. Let this video go into your monastery. Let it infiltrate all the yektas within Burma. Point 1. Sidagu Sayadaw. In Mandalay or in your monastery in Yangon, step up your game and tell the country and the Senior General Ming Online, stop the killing. Stop shooting at innocent people. Point 2. Talk. Appoint an administrative intermediary board of people, prestigious people, people from within Myanmar society, perhaps all religions. Archbishop Charles Bo, someone from the Islamic community, someone from the Jewish community, someone from the Koreans, you, sir. Perhaps have someone from the outside, several people, Nobel laureates, women, artists, and let there be an intermediary body that negotiates your grievances, sir. You're the one. You're the one who has the problem. Let us hear your problem and let a discussion take place, very practical, sir, in which you're heard and you learn the ancient, timeless principle of what we do as monks in Burma, the Patimokkha. We come together every 2 weeks, the new moon, the full moon, and we talk about our transgressions openly. And we resolve our differences among a community. The Sangha exists in Burma based on the lay people, an indispensable interrelated fabric of mutuality. Don't claim autonomy and separateness at this point when they're killing the way in which you sustain through medicines, robes, home, and food, and sanctity. Don't hide behind your dogma of peace and segregation. Crack the apartheid of your religion. Join the struggle through conversation. Point 3, sir. And I'm not just addressing Sidagu Sayadaw, but I feel for the Sangha in Myanmar. I can imagine that it's fearful to imagine talking up. But if you have spiritual power and Dhamma dignity and you are a high-ranking nun or a monk, all it takes is an Uottama gene in you, a Dalai Lama gene in you, a Thich Nhat Hanh gene in you, a monk immolating himself on the streets of Saigon without the fire gene in you. Speak up in your Martin Luther King gene, Gandhi in you. You're destined for the Nobel Peace Prize by speaking up right now. Activate moral courage and conscience. Third point, the immediate, unequivocally immediate release of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. It is unacceptable to take this beloved leader and she's disappeared. The world and you in your country are allowing her to be disappeared. And it's like, we're supposed to believe in your Dhamma? We're supposed to believe in your spiritual depth? And you let Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and the President U Win Myint and over 800 other amazingly profound leaders and artists and elected members of the parliament to disappear? And I go like, where's your moral Dhamma authority? Third point, Senior General Ming Online, I know you've got a problem. Obviously, you're trying to kill it with bullets. It doesn't work. It's not right. It's just not going to work this time. nor is it right. And we as the caretakers of sila, of integrity, and its inseparable role in informing the universality of human rights. It's one thing to have a thought, but to have a free thought and to have a thought of metta, those are different dimensions. We uphold the Dhamma of thinking, of feeling, of acting. Release political prisoners. Point 4. Stop and cease your hunting down of people. Tell everyone in Myanmar you can come out of hiding, Coco G, Minko 9. All of you can come out of hiding. And have that mediation show the world, show the people of Myanmar that this revolution will not end in the way the previous ones have ended, with more political prisoners and more torture and more books about all the revolution there, another generation of Aung San Suu Kyi's and new leaders and new Nobel Peace Prize winners. The people of Burma are going to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Join that nomination, nuns and monks. And my final point, I've joked but not quite really got the point out that men are a blight in leadership. Sorry to state the obvious. They just, something wrong in their DNA and in the way in which they're brought up, that they get it so wrong that there's a part of me that's like, okay, Mr. Biden, okay, United Nations, okay, EU and G7 and Prime Minister this and Prime Minister that. I just borrow the line from our precious Greta, blah. It's like, it's so pathetic. Obama, you made such a big case. Michelle, we go low, they go, we go high, blah, 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 blah. It's such convenient ethics. What are we going to do right now in the world to support the people of Burma? Okay, my final point. I'm not looking for leaders right now to act. It's just, I've cried out for the Nimitz or the Roosevelt to be sent to the Andaman Sea, and may it happen. Artists, Buddhists, meditators, and leaders. Those 4 dimensions in global society. Artists, Buddhists, meditators, and leaders. Briefly. Artists worldwide. How many of you are rooted in political activism and the love of freedom and the love of the arts? We're all in semi or if not total lockdown. Stay at home. You can't go to your stadium to count your loot in the millions. You can't sell merch. You can't go to theaters and do your comedy act. You can't go on set and do Broadway. We're all in kind of a stationary, semi, if not a total lockdown. All the more reason, Lady Gaga, all the more reason, Jay-Z, all the more reason, Bono, all the more reason, Rihanna, all the more reason, Eminem, all the more reason, Jack De La Roche, all the more reason, all the millions of artists and bands and poets and spoken word comedians and slam poets around the world to fucking put out your music, your poetry, your literature, your art, your song, your love of freedom, and put up your 3 fingers, on your screen that shows solidarity with the people of Myanmar, man. What are you waiting for? Wembley? What are you waiting for? A big cash out from Amnesty? What are you waiting for? Show solidarity to our family of freedom-loving people in Myanmar. It's a global family. They're crying out right now in their nonviolent campaign for freedom. And they're begging all their people to risk their lives. You don't hear them whining about why aren't you doing something to help us. That's me. I'm the whiner. I'm the one who's out here kind of outraged and pissed off as an American at the bullshit impotence of President Biden. Despicable! What an opportunity you have in your hands, dude, to send a ship to the Andaman Sea and do something for the world to call freedom, rather than sending jets to Syria and letting off the hook the crown, I can't even get the word, crown crud of Saudi Arabia. You threw up 5 to the dude who dismembered an American connected to the Washington Post. What kind of message are you sending to yourself and to the world? Your political capital is bankrupt, sir. Bankrupt. You make it ugly to be an American with simple actions of impotent moral vacuousness. Artists, Buddhists. The 6th Great Buddhist Council was in Burma in the 50s. Buddhism pretty much comes to the world as we know it based upon these 6 councils ever since the time of the Buddha. Burma, in a way, is the most sacred, authentic, dedicated Buddhist culture in the world. There ain't no ambiguity about it. 5,000 monasteries, 500,000 monks, 500,000 nuns, a lay society that even children understand the beauty of dana, of moral restraint, of hiri and ottappa, moral shame and deep decency to do what's right, and how people who are smart and conscious support that. I've gone to monasteries where I've seen 1,000 boys and girls under 15 years old joyously shave their head for a month, don the robes, and meditate and study ancient literature, learn the art of dialogue and cooperation and mutuality. It is so beautiful to see that. And I've interviewed these boys and girls at the end of their Dhamma culture courses. I've interviewed their parents, and their greatest fear their parents have is that the boys and girls will not want to leave the community, the Dhamma community within the monastery. They so love what they've learned. And I've interviewed the boys and girls, some of them as young as 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. I have it on video and tape. Their greatest fear is my parents will not understand my love of meditation. Welcome to Burma. It's a deep Dhamma culture. At the same time, it's a tapestry of religions and ethnicities. And we've got this terrorist organization, this epic circumstance. I'm sorry to go on about this, but artists, Buddhists worldwide, the Cambodians, the Vietnamese, the Tibetans, the Sri Lankans, the Thais, the Americans, the Canadians, the Europeans, the Buddhists worldwide. But what can we do? Just bypass the politics and in-breath, out-breath? I'm not going to insult you through bypassing. That's acceptable behavior if that's your choice. But you're asking the question in this moment of openness, if you're listening to this sharing, what can I do, Alan? Show solidarity. Embroider 3 fingers on your zafu. Embroider 3 fingers with a civil disobedience movement, Myanmar, on your Instagram page. Take your next online embodied mindfulness training off of your Facebook page and put embodied mindfulness in support of Myanmar. Anything creative. What does it mean to write a couple of lines of a poem and even send it to a friend as I think of the boys and girls in Burma elevating the status of freedom? My heart cries in solidarity with them. Love, Beth. anything at all to get started in the movement of revolution of the heart. Don't look for heroic actions. They're often a disguise for inactions. Little by little. Back in '96, when I was with Dosu in U Tin U, in U Win Tain, in U A Mong, in U Chi Mong, one by one the people came out to the street. One by one they quivered in compassion and freedom. One by one they were encouraged by their leaders not to do what they're doing for freedom tomorrow, but to enjoy the sanctity of freedom right now. That's the Dhamma of revolution. In-breath, out-breath. See the sanctity of freedom, a shared experience. Join, Buddhists, the worldwide meditative support for the boys and girls in Burma. Begin to align over the religiosity of sect and tradition. How many Buddhists in Europe and America and Canada and Australia, they go bazonkers over someone who's had sex, so to speak, with a student. And they publicly vilify and crucify him, or primarily him, with the greatest transgression on the planet. And yet their own loyalty to the fidelity of their own teachings. You look at their bios and you look on Wikipedia, lineage holders from Ledi Sayadaw, Uba Khin, Goenka, Mahasi Sayadaw, and almost no fidelity at all to this lineage of Dhamma parenting, but yet the persecution of underlings who can't quite understand the ethics and the compulsions of their own biological necessities to make love. Yes, I understand. But where's your loyalty to Dhamma family? Almost all mindfulness can be traced back to Myanmar. It's a discernible journey. Ledi Sayadaw, up in the north, his monastery recently attacked. You've got Mahasi Sayadaw, you've got Mingun Sayadaw, you've got people who dedicated their lives to translating these ancient, very difficult to discern Buddhist texts and made them intimately relevant for people like me and like you. That you too can be not a Buddhist, but you too can see these ancient technologies and apply them without the religiosity filter and see your life change. I've often joked, I've been addicted to more things simultaneously than most people have ever been addicted to, and I've overcome them all in terms of substances. I'm a better person as a result of those things. And it all came from the power of seeing elders and people who had the heart and the love of me to apprentice me, to take me in as Dhamma family, a rebel maverick, former addict. That's Myanmar. Where are you, Buddhists? Come on board. Imagine pre-Hitler, post the burning of the books, and all of a sudden we're hearing, oh my God, there's a white supremacist brokering this dictatorial ideology of domination, talking about the persecution of minorities, those who have sexual instincts different from pure white hetero, and those who may think differently than pure white hetero. And the next thing you know, the Jews in Germany and the Jews in Poland are like being vilified, discriminated upon. And I've got my affluence here in New York or LA or in Berlin, or in Belgium or somewhere else in Canada or Australia. And God, that's too bad, it's really too bad. Next thing you know, we hear about exterminations. And yet, you're Jewish, you're Christian, you're Catholic, you're gay, and you're not doing anything at all in connection to your loyalty to lineage. And you go, oh, that's really too bad. That there's nothing I could do anyway. And going back to counting my own loot, making my own money, teaching my own mindfulness online training. Artists, Buddhists, wake up, support Burma's struggle for freedom. Meditators. People who've been to Myanmar know you may not be a Buddhist, but it's a culture of meditation. Beautiful. It's probably only 1 in 100, maybe only 5 in 1,000 who use the word mindfulness. It probably really could understand that word, sati, pretty much came to you through a lineage of people that's traceable back to Lady Sayadaw and to Mahasi Sayadaw and to Ubakin and to Goenkaji, to Mingun Sayadaw. That's, wow, my livelihood, my dignity that's rooted in my coaching craft as a mindfulness coach, a mindfulness teacher, a Vipassana teacher. Really, that's so cool to find. I've got family. It's like my Dhamma genealogy is rooted there. Yep, it is. Let it illuminate and burn with beauty, knowing that you've got a reason to belong to a long lineage of caregivers who've kept the fidelity of that teaching alive, offered it freely in Myanmar the way they do, and you define your life based upon it. Artists, Buddhists, meditators, mindfulness teachers, coaches. And last, I'll conclude with leaders. You're really low on my list of people I respect, I have to say, because there's just something about you that just doesn't act in a way that I can respect. And I'm not one for speaking truth to power. It's like I'd rather speak openly and courageously to people in solidarity with me. I'd rather make love than to go to war and try to convince Neanderthals. I'd rather talk to your wives and the women, because the men are just generally hopeless. But the women are powerful and often can hear in these positions. Dr. Jill in the White House snapped Coma Joe out of his trance of prophet. You know, I'll set up an ayahuasca session for you and Joe. They can come to the Oval Office and give you a little bit of this immeasurably transformational root, coupled with a little MDMA psychedelic therapy and a deep, deep psychiatric support for any kind of breakthrough that you might have. And see if you can crack the coma of your own unconsciousness and snap out of this primacy of profit over people, purpose, and drop your privilege, your white, stupid privilege. Open your mouth, put this in it, and snap out of the coma of your unconsciousness. Just like that, you know? What would I do if I had a dinner with President Biden? I'd just say that. Because getting through to Neanderthal, you need a chisel, right? Wasting your time, Alan. Wasting your time. You know, how do you overcome the delusion of sociopathy and pathology like that? But. Okay, the women. Stand up. Few people know that Myanmar is a matriarchal society. The women really rule there. They own the money, they hold the money. Men do backflips for their wives and the women. I've been calling on it. First, I'll start the leaders in Myanmar. The female leaders in Myanmar, make it clear to your husbands in the Thamada, the terrorist organization, Release Aung San Suu Kyi, or it's the end of me. Restore the parliament, or it's over with the family and I'm taking everything with me. Release all political prisoners immediately, or I'm gone. And if you don't act within 48 hours, it's full-time divorce. Don't ever talk to me again in your life. If the women of Myanmar did this, call me a fool. Shame on me for encouraging you to drop your relationship to a psychopath. And I know you know this, but you don't have really the courage to break ranks. Where would I go? They'll persecute me. They'll kill. You will be celebrated. You will be celebrated. Go to a monastery. Go somewhere and you will be loved. And for leaders worldwide, simply to end today's sharing, don't wait for another day of murders in Myanmar to go, I think we need to step up our response, okay? Act now. How? Sanctions, you've already done. They're not enough. They're a waste of time. You did what you had to do diplomatically, but the Taliban in Burma is basically saying, God, yeah, just as we thought. They're just sanctioning us. What a joke. But what would they go, Ming Online, I just received word that there's an aircraft attack group coming from the South China Sea through the Singapore Strait, and it's coming to the Andaman Sea. He said, what? Okay, leaders worldwide, get the dude to take notice of the importance of direct action. And it's called showing up with funds, with food, with moral support, and with military might. And if you had my way, and what I would suggest to you, I would love, again, I go on and on about growing up in a military family, on military bases, veterans of the war, my grandfather also a veteran of World War I know the mindset. Have our military feel the dignity of their inherent role as upholders of justice, rule of law, democracy, and freedom. Get their ass out of the China Sea, leave one ship there, and get them to where democracy matters. Do not allow Burma to become the next Tibet. Act now. One more death of the revolutionaries is one death too many. And park the aircraft carrier right there with those 64 F-18 Hornet jets. And do me a favor, sir, and just simply paint with water paints 3 fingers on the flight deck of the Nimitz and show the solidarity to the people. You will stop the world in its tracks with that act of Gandhian nonviolence. That act of bringing the Nimitz to the Andaman Sea is equivalent to Gandhi holding up his hand full of salt to the sun and saying, British, we are many and you are few. You're done. Do it today, President Biden, and the United Nations Secretary General and all 193 nations do the same thing. And if they go further, put peacekeepers on the ground in Rangoon. Feed the people. Give them medical supplies. And let the people of Burma stop work for the terrorist organization of that country. So, from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. May I encourage you as we end here today to share this video worldwide and have a great day, not to lose hope, to allow the emotionality of outrage and all the spectrum of, just being pissed off. There's something about sacred rage, to use Martin Luther King's term, that's very important right now. And let's just not lose solidarity with the remarkably courageous people in Myanmar. May this revolution succeed. So from my heart to yours, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow at 9:30 here in California.